Ya Hazireen Majlis, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're continuing with our topic for this year, which is finding peace in an imperfect world, balancing acceptance, action, and hope. So yesterday we talked quite a bit of theory about how when we chase extrinsic things. First of all, we talked about how Allah has honored us, how He has created us to be worthy. We are worthy by nature of the fact that He has created us and He has put His spirit in us. So the human being is highly honored by God. And the problem happens is that when we mistake that honor given by Him by attributing it to ourselves. And we said that what has happened in this world is that when the Quran talks about, self-deluded boasting, mukhtaran fakhura, that when the human being kind of loses his way and instead of being connected to God, starts chasing things which are very shallow, which will never kind of make us happy, then that's how we lose our way. And we talked about how in this world, the extrinsic things means things outside of us, for example, money, fame, and image. Those are the things that are motivating human beings today. All of us are kind of susceptible to this. And because of, there's a lot of research that it is chasing these things which is actually causing us to be unhappy, depressed, and anxious. So, so yesterday we kind of laid the groundwork, and we also said that when we are focusing on intrinsic things that make us happy, which are what? Of course, connection to God, right? And secondly, things like self-development. And a very big aspect of that is contribution. When we are so self-obsessed, which is what has happened today and which is what social media really promotes, right, is this obsessive focus on the self. The thing is that it is not making us happy, number one, and it is actually causing our unhappiness. So today, inshallah, let's take this discussion a little bit forward. And I really thank everyone for following along yesterday. I understand it was a bit theoretical. It was a bit heavy. Today, it is going to be extremely practical. So now that we've kind of laid the foundation, we've understood why this is important, let's talk about how we can do things which are going to promote our own well-being and happiness. So, salawat. So in Surah Mulk, in the Quran, verses that we're all really familiar with, Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allazi khalaqal mawta wal hayata li'abluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala wa huwal azizul ghafur. He is the one who created death and life. Why? Why did He create it? In other words, why are we here? Allah is answering this question for us, okay? He says, so that we may try you who is better in deeds. Ahsanu Amala. So today, inshallah, we will really focus on this word, Ahsanu Amala. What does it mean? When the English translation, better in deeds, really doesn't capture it. The word ahsan or husn is a very core word of the Quran. We, in fact, did a couple of years ago, we did a whole series on living with ihsan. What does that mean? Okay. And ihsan, husn, husn, we all know, comes from the word beauty. And ihsan means excellence, to do anything with excellence, to do it with beauty, to do it with kindness. And it is a kind of action that makes the soul beautiful. So yesterday we talked about how when we focus on very transitory things such as our body, no matter how much we try, we will age. No matter how much we focus on image, those wrinkles will eventually catch up to us, right? So the idea is that when we focus on things which are more lasting, things that no one can take away from us, things that are beautifying to the soul. So what are these things? Okay. And by the way, Ahsanu Amala, Allah does not say kasirun amal. He doesn't say do a lot of things, right? In fact, in Surah Zilzal, again, verses that we're all familiar with, He says, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا. The person who does an atom's weight of good, he shall see it. Now, an atom's weight, it's very hard to understand. Zara, today's world, it's actually not that hard. But whenever, like if you go in a dark room, and in places like Pakistan, this is much more obvious, when the sunlight comes into the room and you see this little flecks of dust flying around, you've all seen them, right? That is even minuter than that is a zara. And miskhala zaratin yara means that things that are weighty. Now, what is weighty? It is not, so all of us have come here, right? All of us, when we come here, we will not all get the same reward, right? Because the reward with Allah depends on niyyah, intention. So the Prophet ﷺ tells us that he says he says that it is the niyyah is actually the deed itself. That's how important. Take an example. Everyone had a shower this morning. Okay, good thing, nothing wrong with it. In order to convert that into an act of worship, what is needed? A niyyah, right? All of us do intermittent fasting, right? No, but I like your body might get benefit, but when you fast, when you change the niyyah into fasting, then it is at a whole different level. So you see what I'm saying, right? So when we talk about, and here's the challenge, and this is a very subtle point, so just stay with me for a while. Today, we're going to really talk about the benefits of Ahsanu Amala for ourselves, okay? Now, the problem is that if I know, right, if I know that when I do something, it is so good for me, and I start doing it with that niyyah, there's a problem, right? There's a problem. I will get the benefit. I will get the physical benefit. But in order to get the spiritual benefit, why do I need to do it? I need to do it for His pleasure. So why do we then spend so much time talking about the benefits of these actions? Like I'm always telling you, presenting you with details from psychology, from science about how all of these things are good for us. The thing is, there is a much bigger purpose. Once we recognize how merciful and kareem our Lord is, it should make us fall in love with Him. And then even when He tells us to do something which we don't understand, which is hard, it should become easier, right? Because we know that science is proving day and day after, in and out, that when we move away from Him, even secular things will tell us, when we chase these things, not making us happy, when we align ourselves to our creational purpose, when we remind ourselves why we're here and we live in alignment to that, this will bring us peace and happiness in this world as well. Sure. This is something, many of us lose our way. Why? Because we think that in order to be happy in the next world, we need to be miserable in this. How many of us believe that, right? I mean, I know I've worked with women who say, you know what, I need to be like, I'm just going to take it all. I'm going to be a victim. And then Bibi Fatima will protect me, right? I'm like, Bibi Fatima went to court to fight her case. There is no merit in being a victim, zero. So we need to make ourselves happy in this world and the next, okay? It is not, and this is what we pray every single day, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana, right? Okay, so just remember that even when I'm telling you, and when you hear about all the benefits, you will say, oh my God, I need to do this so that I get this benefit. But remember, always renew your niyyah so that you are connected to the one who has created all of these things, okay? So also, again, very, very subtle things. So again, to remind ourselves that it is not big things, it is little things done with the right intention which God wants, okay? Now, the thing that we're going to really explore today, Allah tells us in the Quran, in ahsantum li anfusikum. What does that mean? When you do good for your own self. It is a very, very powerful ayah, okay? So now, again, we think, okay, this means that if we are doing good, how are we doing good for ourselves? Because we will get sawab. Please let us move a little bit beyond that. when Allah is talking about in ahsantum li anfusikum, we will see the benefit right here, right now. Right here, right now. Okay, so how? Before we go there, how do we recognize if a deed that we're doing is Ahsanu Amala? Because all of us, we do good deeds, we do so many things, okay? So scholars explain three things. One is that it has hayat, it has immortality. Because remember, what is with God is there forever. So anything that we know that you give in the way, there's a beautiful story. The Prophet ﷺ, it is said that he used to really like the shoulder of lamb. Okay? And one year at the time of, sacrifice, when they kind of slaughtered the lamb, and, Salma, his wife, told him when he came home, he said, everything has been given away except that I saved the shoulder of lamb for you. And you know what the Prophet replies? He said, everything is saved except the shoulder. Everything is saved. Why? Because when you give in his way, it is not gone. It has hayat. And we've all heard the story about Bibi Sayyida giving away her wedding dress on her wedding night. And to this day, that deed lives. To this day, we talk about it. When we talk about the family of the Prophet giving away their food for 3 days. So it has hayat, okay? Secondly, it has sukoon. It has contentment. So remember, our topic for this year is that sukoon and contentment. And inshallah, we'll discuss it a lot more. Thirdly, it has noor. It radiates out. What does that mean? How do we understand it? Imagine that you are cold. We experience that a lot in Toronto, right? Now there are, you're with a group of people and you're feeling cold. There are two ways to get warm. Can you tell me what they are?
Wear a sweater.
Wear a sweater. What else could you do?
Come closer.
Sorry?
Come closer to work out.
Okay, you hug somebody. What else?
Huddle.
Huddle. You could light a fire, right? And when you light a fire, what happens? Everyone gets warm. That's what we're talking about. See, this is the human being. First thing, what do we think of? If I'm cold, I need to put on a sweater. Think of myself. But that is not Ahsanu Amala. Ahsanu Amala is that you radiate that goodness to people around you. So and again, remember yesterday we said how he has breathed his spirit into us. He has done that for all of us. When you look at the Hindus have a really beautiful way of greeting, right? Namaste means I bow to the divinity in you. And this is what Allah tells us, that all of us have the Spirit of God. So when we look out for each other, we have to remember that the path to Him is through people. When we look out for other human beings, this is how Allah is pleased. So, three things: hayat, sukoon, and noor. That's how we recognize. And it's for us. Nobody else can tell us, right? We know what our niyat is. We know what we're doing. So today we'll talk about 4 types of Ahsanu Amala. And inshallah, again, don't worry about it if you don't remember anything. If you can take one thing, if you do one act of kindness today because of what you heard today, this will be, how we can carry it forward. So the first thing is Ahsanu Amala, just small acts of kindness. You saw, I had family visiting in this year, inshallah, alhamdulillah, from Haram. And some of them commented that you have such a polite society, that my dad especially said, when I was there, people held the door open for me. My brother said somebody brought me a glass of water. And the thing is, we take these things for granted, right? But this is Ahsanu Amala, thinking about someone else, little things that you don't know, you don't know the person. And very interestingly, so up to very recently, when they did research, everyone knows that when you do something kind for someone, they feel good. True? Yeah. However, recently, when people were doing research on this, what they found out something very, very interesting. What they found out was, and now because of, it's not of anything else, but technology has improved to this extent that we can hook people up, we can put them into fMRI machines, we see what parts of the brain light up when you do certain things. So because of that, we have a lot more knowledge today. So when they do this, they realize that, yes, the person who's on the receiving end of an action, of a kind action, feels good. However, the person who's doing the action feels really good. Why? Because there are some things happening in the brain and physiology. This is how Allah has created us, right? Something happens in their brain and physiology. What happens? Oxytocin, you've all heard the bonding hormone. When we nurse, we release it, right? It makes us feel really peaceful. That is released. Serotonin, which is called nature's antidepressant, right? That is released. The neurotransmitters in the brain, they all kind of light up, okay? And it is said that, so the person who's doing the act, they get the benefit. The person who's receiving the act, get the benefit. Very interestingly, if you are watching and you see somebody doing an act of kindness, guess what? Your physiology reacts. You get an immune boost from watching things that people are doing, kindness to each other. Okay, so now, and then what happens? This is not the end of it. Okay, so now 3 people, or if there's many people watching, and they've done a lot of like actual research on it, I'll come to it in a minute. So now 3 people are, now the person who's doing the act of kindness actually gets the biggest boost. It's called the helper's high. You know, inshallah, tonight we'll be having a discussion on substance abuse, but this is the helper's high. It is actually the same pleasure centers of the brain that light up without any hangover, by the way, okay, that are caused by doing acts of kindness. And then now you have a memory bank. So memories, we know, actually change our brain and they change our body. So now you have a memory bank. Every time you think about that action, you will get a boost. Can we have a salawat?
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So you see, again, when we align ourselves to God and we recognize this is Marifah of Allah, this is Marifah of Allah, to understand how He has created us and given us all the tools that we need, the guidance, in order to make ourselves happy here and in the hereafter, okay? So now, why don't people do more of it? Okay, if this is so common. So yesterday, remember, we talked about something called the cocoon of self-absorption. Remember we talked about that? What does that mean? You know, many times I say things and I don't have time to explain it. So please feel free to message me, harass me, and, you know, I will answer the question eventually, not immediately, but inshallah. Okay, so the cocoon of self-absorption simply means I'm so focused on my own problems, on my own things. We all live like that, right? That I'm not paying attention. I'm just not paying attention to outside. Now, what Hadith tells us is that opportunities are like clouds. You know how clouds, especially in Toronto, they come and they go very fast. So that's what opportunities are like. So now imagine that I see someone and my instinct, my compassion will light up and I want to help that person. Very often what will happen is that I will second guess myself, right? And second guess myself and I'd say, I'll do it later, or somebody else will do it, or whatever, okay? And then I talk myself out of it and the opportunity has gone like a cloud. However, if we actually do it, right, you know, it creates a ripple effect. Remember we said that Ahsanu Amala radiates out. It has a ripple effect. So there was one very interesting thing I read, and many of us have experienced this, right? That somebody was standing in line for a coffee and they told them that, you know, your coffee's been paid for by the car person behind you, or ahead of you, sorry. So so they said, oh, so they felt really good and they wanted to pay it forward. So she just, turns around, makes sure that there's not a busload behind her. And she says, okay, I'll do the same. I'll pay for the coffee of the person behind. And so then the same thing happens. They come up and they tell the person, and they said, do you know that this thing has been going on for 45 minutes? For 45 minutes, because somebody started this, it has been going on. People have been paying it forward, right? This is what we mean by a ripple effect, right? And how, this is like more important today than at any other time in history, because we are literally making ourselves miserable by not doing these things, okay? So, talking about cocoon of self-absorption, I read a very interesting, again, study. There was this group of Christian monks, okay, and they were told that they had to give a lecture on exactly something like this, right? Good deeds, be a good Samaritan. And so they had to go, they were housed in one part of the campus, and they had to go right across the campus, and they were running late. This was an experiment that people did. And so they're rushing, and the experiment was set up such that there was a poor homeless man in torn clothes and moaning in pain, lying in their way. And all of them, so they were maybe like, say there were 20 people, 90% of them like literally climbed over the man to walk. Because why? Because they were in a hurry, because they had to do something very important. Okay, what were they doing? They were giving a lecture on acts of kindness. And only 10% of the people actually stopped. And this is what happens when we are, so here's the thing, I really believe that our community, the Shias of the Ahlul Bayt, we really have an edge up on the rest of humanity. Do you know of any other community that spends 2.5 months every single year working on self-development? No other community. I've literally looked, I've really tried to find another example. There isn't one. So this means that we really should be shining examples of things that we've done, but these are kind of the things that get in our way. Okay. So the second kind of Ahsanu Amala. The first we said just random acts of kindness. Okay. Because we're so busy and because time just, passes so fast, the second act of kindness is kind of to regularize it, to volunteer for something, to volunteer your services. Very, very, very important. Why? Because what the Quran tells us is if we don't do that, we will live to regret it. For example, the verse of the Quran says that, when death comes to people, what will they say? Oh, please give me one, just give me some more time. Give me some more time for what? So that I would give out of what I have been given. And by the way, that's not only material things, right? Anything that we have been given, granted, any kind of resource we have, any kind of ability we have, has been given to us to pay it forward, right? So please give me some more time, so I will pay it for, like, I will do acts of kindness. I will do these things. And of course, we know that this life is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. So when the time is up, it's up. And the vast majority of people tend to regret the way they spend time because we don't get anything in return. Okay. So we need to, and again, the Prophet ﷺ tells us, he says, do good according to your capacity. God does not grow tired of giving rewards unless you are tired of doing good. The good deeds most loved by God are those that are done regularly, even if they're small. So again, something that stops us all the time is we think so overwhelmed. We have to do so much. Volunteer 10 minutes of your time in a week. That is not a lot. And again, it starts with the intention. If we have the intention, this is what I want to do, I promise you that the opportunities will appear. The problem is we spend a lot of times telling ourselves how it is so difficult.
True.
So we need to kind of change our mindset. Instead of saying, how is it going to happen? Like, don't keep second guessing. Anyone who achieves anything in life will tell you that the self-doubt and, it's normal. You have to learn to take action despite that. So many women come and they say, we want to do this, but we don't have confidence. And I'm like, you're not going to get the confidence until you actually start doing it. Things will not work out unless you make the intention and start taking the first step. Okay. So back to some research. Even thinking about helping others boosts our health. Even thinking about helping others boosts our health. This is our Lord. Okay. There was a group at Harvard University. A group of students watched a film about Mother Teresa's work in the slums of Calcutta. They just sat and watched, but later tests revealed that the students responded to the film physically with an increase in hemoglobin A, which if you guys are medical people, and antibodies that defends against certain diseases. Okay. Especially for women. When older women, a key to longevity, health, and vitality. Women who volunteer their time are much less likely, and I have the figures, I have the research if anyone's interested, are much less likely to die of certain diseases. They have 44% reduction. That is a lot in early death among those who volunteered a lot. That is a greater, how many of us exercise? Come on, more people have to be not like me. Okay. So great. Do you know that volunteering has a better effect on your health than exercising 4 times a week? Okay. Again, depression, anxiety, all of these things, as we get older, the wounds of life tend to catch up. You know what I mean? Right. People have hurt us, we have been betrayed, our hearts, all of us are full of some pain. And volunteering is a very, very good way. Remember yesterday we said that the one way to kind of, move beyond our little problems in the grand scheme of things, they are little things, is to take on big problems, to take on causes bigger than ourselves. Okay. Third kind of Ahsanu Amala is to support good that is already happening. So I call this being a force for good. Something is happening, you join that kind of force, okay? And Allah tells us in the Quran that we have to do ta'awun with bir and taqwa. When something good is happening, join that, make it into a bigger force. And why, so much, again, research on the law of synergy, that when people join together, there are so many benefits. You pool your resources, it's 2 and 2 is not 4, it becomes 44. Just because what you are lacking, I may have, and what I'm lacking, you may have, right? When we work together for the common good, we build bonds with each other. And there is reciprocity. We know that when we are taking care as a group of other people, that we will be taken care of. When I was doing research for this, I came across a beautiful concept. It's called Minga. Has anyone heard of this? Okay, so there's this lovely book, and it's for young people who want to be inspired. It's called From Me to We, or just called Me, not From Me to We. It's written by these couple of brothers who started a nonprofit. One of them, who was 12 years old, he read about this Pakistani laborer, actually, who was killed, and he started this whole organization, and they're really amazing, So they were somewhere in Latin America, and they said they were building a school. They built many schools up to now. So they were building a school, and for some reason, they were called back. They had to leave. And what happened was, so they told the group, they were very upset about it. They told the group that, we can't move forward. We have to kind of abandon this project. And they said, before we knew it, he just rushed out and he said something, and he came back, and that was it. And then we went to sleep really upset that night. We woke up in the morning and realized that the entire village had stopped everything they were doing and they had built the school in the middle of the night, right? And so they asked, what is this? What's going on? They said, oh, we called a minga. And a minga simply means that you give a call out for help and everybody gathers and they just put their things on hold and they do whatever is needed. Isn't that just the most beautiful concept? Okay, so we really, I'm going to use this word a lot. Okay, minga. So just say it, minga. Okay, so and like teach your families, let's do a minga. Let's like, and can you imagine the kind of inspiration that you can get from each other? Okay, and then the last type of Ahsanu Amala that we're going to be talking about is acting towards what is needed in the world today. So what does that mean? A little bit heavier, right? Another great book, The Road to Character, David Brooks, brilliant book, okay? He says that, again, all of us are focused on what we want from life, okay? But that question is wrong. What we need to ask is, what is life requiring from me right now? How am I being summoned to life, okay? And he gives many examples. And, Viktor Frankl, some of you may have heard of him. Who was he? He was a Jewish prisoner of the Holocaust. And he wrote books in prison. And he literally, to this day, like he is one of the most highly regarded psychologists out there. Okay. So he said, obviously, this was not his plan. He ended up in prison. This is not what he was expecting. He said it did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who are being questioned and summoned by life, called. Our answer must consist not in talk and in meditation, but in right action and right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. Okay. And we know he did that. There's a lot to say about him. So the question to ask ourselves is, what is life demanding of us right now? We don't need to look very far. We know there's a genocide going on, right? And, it's been a long time. It's been months. Many of us are we did our bit and now we're kind of tired. Okay. And what are some of the excuses we have not to take action? Because remember, what did the prophet teach us? Like, how are we supposed to take action? First, we have to stop something. If we see something wrong, we have to stop it with our hands. If that is not possible, we have to speak up against it. And if we can't even do that, we have to nurture the hatred within our hearts that this is not right, okay? So exhaustion, not an option. Giving up, it's just not an option. This is what life is calling upon us to do right now, okay? The strangest thing is when people say, oh, I can't boycott. Why can't you boycott? Because it's very hard. Really? If it was easy, it wouldn't be a thing. It really wouldn't be a thing. Because if it was easy, we wouldn't be in this thing. We wouldn't be so dependent on things which are creating harm in the world, right? So if it is hard, that's a good sign. That's a sign that we're actually on the right track, that we are on to Ahsanu Amala. Another common thing that we hear is, what difference will it make? Do you ever think like that? I know I do. What is it going to matter if I do anything? And when my mind thinks like that, I have to remind myself that God is not asking me to change anything. Is God asking me to change anything? Even the prophets were not asked to change anything. We only have to focus on our own effort. The outcome, my friends, is never in our hands, never. That is God's business. That is not my business. What is my business? My business is that I do my best, okay? So, this story has been narrated in many different words, but this is my version, okay? My version is that when the fire of Namrud was blazing and Nabi Ibrahim was about to be catapulted into the middle of the fire, there was a little lizard. And the little lizard with his slow feet would keep running to the fire, spit on it, come back, fill the mouth with water, spit on it, right? And all the other animals were kind of laughing at the lizard. That what are you doing? You look at the fire and look at yourself. You're actually making no difference. And so the lizard replies that I'm not expecting to make a difference. That is God's job. My job is only to spit on the fire. This is my ability and I'm doing it according to my ability, right? Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And of course, we know the Quran reminds us what? The Quran is always telling us, because here's this thing. In the modern world, we are all tuned into, radios hote the ab zamane mein, pata nahi ab hote bhi hain ya nahi. Does anyone listen to it? Okay. So there's a channel which we're all tuned into, which is WIIFM. What is WIIFM? What's in it for me? Okay. And so what's in it for you? Allah is always answering this question. What is in it for us? Okay. So in verse 38 of chapter 24, he says that Allah may give them the best reward of what they have done. हम लोग इतना सा करते हैं ना, उसमें इतना ज़्यादा मिल जाता है. Like you saw, a little act of kindness, and we are not responsible for all of these things that are happening in our body, right? Give them more, and give them more out of his grace. एक तो दे दिया, फिर उसके बाद give them more out of his grace, and Allah gives sustenance to whom he wishes بغير حساب. He gives it beyond. So again, coming back to you do one act of kindness, it's you, it's the other person, it's the people watching, it's you remembering. It is just benefit upon benefit upon benefit, right? So what are the 4 Ahsanu Amala we talked about? Doing random acts of kindness. Can we all do that? Can we make it a goal to do like 2 or 3 a week? Can we start with that? Okay. Then regular acts of volunteerism. Okay. Number 3, what was number 3? Somebody remind me. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Someone's listening. So join something, support it in any way you can, good that is already happening. Okay. And lastly, ask what is the need of the hour and act according to that. Okay. So I just like to end with one of my favorite poems. Some of you may have heard it. It's called At a Day's End. Is anybody happier? And by the way, the poet is John Hall. Is anybody happier because you passed their day? Does anyone remember that you spoke to them today? The day is almost over and its toiling time is through. Is there anyone that will utter a kind word about you? Can you say tonight in parting with the day that's slipping fast that you helped a single person of the many that you passed? Is a single heart rejoicing over what you did or said? Does the one whose hopes were fading now with courage look ahead? Did you win the day or lose it? Was it spent well or sorely? Did you leave a trail of kindness or a scar of discontent? As you close your eyes in slumber, do you think that God will say, you have earned one more tomorrow by the good you did today? Hello.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So, again, when we're reminded that when we do acts for the sake of God, we are told that God will make it bigger than he wishes in the sight of others. And anyone who performs a great act for the sake of people, God will make it trivial in the sight of others. Okay. And there's no better example of this than the farsh that we are sitting on today. When we look at the institution of Majalis that Bibi Zainab alayhi salam started, it has Noor, it has Sukoon, right? And it has Hayat. We are sitting here, you and me, because of the actions that she took, because she did what she was called upon to do.